I never liked coffee much. I liked the idea of it. Steaming cups held by people who looked like they had their lives together. The scent that lingered in bookstores and study halls. The way adults always seemed to start their day with it like it was some kind of ritual. But for me, coffee had always been more about the experience than the taste. That's why when my best friend Kara suggested we meet up at Starbucks one summer afternoon, I didn't hesitate. It had been a long, boring summer. My parents were strict, the kind who always had the news on and saw the worst in every story. Kidnappings, disappearances, tragedies happening to kids who didn't listen to their parents. They weren't overbearing without reason, though. We lived in a good neighborhood, but my mom grew up in a rougher part of town, and she never forgot that fear. Stay with your friends. Don't talk to strangers. Text me the second you need a ride. I had heard these things a million times, but that day I was desperate to get out of the house. My mom hesitated when I asked, but when I mentioned that I'd be with a group of friends the whole time, she finally relented. She dropped me off right in front of the Starbucks, giving me one last warning look before driving away. I spotted Kara and our other friend Lauren standing outside chatting as they scrolled through their phones. The Starbucks was part of an outdoor shopping center, a strip of boutique stores, clothing shops, and small restaurants. There were families, couples, groups of friends. Nothing felt unsafe. We went inside. The blast of air conditioning hit us as we joined the line. None of us were really into coffee, so we all ordered the same thing, a mocha frappuccino, which was basically just a milkshake with a fancier name. "I'll grab us a table," Kara said, nudging Lauren to follow. I stayed behind, waiting for our drinks. It was the middle of the day and the place was moderately crowded. Mostly women, moms with their kids, a few teenagers on their laptops. I pulled out my phone and started scrolling through TikTok, zoning out to whatever random videos popped up. That's when I noticed him. He was standing a few feet away near the register, late 20s, maybe older. Tall, lean, dark hair, slightly disheveled. He wore a plain gray t-shirt and jeans, nothing memorable, but something about him made my skin crawl. I hadn't even looked at him directly, but I could feel his gaze on me. I kept my eyes on my phone, pretending not to notice. Maybe I was imagining it. Maybe he was just waiting for his drink like everyone else. But then he spoke. "You're kind of young to be drinking coffee, aren't you, little lady?" His voice was smooth, casual, but something about the way he said "little lady" made my stomach twist. I forced a polite laugh. "Oh, I just got a frappuccino." I hoped that would be the end of it. "You here alone?" he asked. I shook my head quickly and gestured toward my friends. "No, I'm with them." I saw Kara and Lauren watching from our table, their faces slightly concerned. The last of our drinks came up and I grabbed them as fast as I could, muttering, "Got to go," before rushing over. "What was that about?" Kara asked the second I sat down. I exhaled sharply. "Some creepy guy trying to chat me up." Lauren wrinkled her nose. "Ugh. Weird." We brushed it off and started talking about our summer plans. The moment passed and I started to relax until I noticed him again. He had taken a seat at the table right next to ours, alone, facing us. I told myself I was overreacting. It was a public place. He had every right to sit wherever he wanted, but still, why here? I tried to ignore him, but every time I glanced his way, his eyes were already on me. After about an hour, we decided to leave. "Let's go to Forever 21, Kara suggested. I agreed instantly, eager to get away from Starbucks. We threw our empty cups away and headed down the sidewalk toward the store. I don't know what made me turn around. Some instinct, some deep-rooted unease. But when I did, my blood went cold. The man was following us. He was a short distance behind, walking at a casual pace, but it was obvious. He had been in Starbucks long before we arrived. And yet, the moment we left, he left too. I swallowed hard. Maybe it was just a coincidence. Maybe he was heading in the same direction, but I didn't believe that. We reached Forever 21 and headed straight to the back where the graphic t-shirts were. The store was big and bright, music playing over the speakers. It felt safer here. We picked out a few things to try on and went to the fitting rooms. I changed quickly, deciding what I wanted to buy. Then, as I stepped out of the dressing room, I froze. The man was standing right there, his eyes locked onto mine, and he smiled. "Funny running into you here," he said. I felt like my throat had closed up. This wasn't a coincidence. He had followed us. I tried to move past him, but as I stepped forward, he lifted his arm, resting his hand against the doorway, blocking my exit. My heartbeat pounded in my ears. "What did you get?" he asked, nodding toward the clothes I was holding. I stared at the floor, my grip tightening on the fabric. "Just some shirts." He leaned in slightly. "You know, you're too pretty to have to pay for your own stuff. I can buy you whatever you want." My stomach churned. "No thanks. I have my own money." He smiled wider. "Come on, let me do something nice for you." I shook my head quickly. "No, really." At that moment, Kara and Lauren stepped out of their dressing rooms. Their eyes landed on me, then on him. "What's going on?" Kara asked, voice sharp. I seized the opportunity. "My mom just texted me. She's picking us up now." Instantly, they understood. They didn't hesitate. They dropped their clothes and grabbed my arm. "Let's go." We walked out of the store quickly, the man calling after us. "Wait! Hey, hold on," we didn't turn back. The second we got outside, we started running. "Where do we go?" Lauren panted. I frantically scanned the area. Then I saw him. A police officer standing near a parked patrol car writing a parking ticket. I ran straight for him. "Help!" I gasped. "A man is following us." The officer's eyes widened as we stumbled up to him. He immediately ushered us behind him and radioed for backup. Minutes later, another officer arrived. We told them everything. They searched the area and found the man lingering nearby. It turned out he was already wanted for targeting underage girls. The thought made me sick. If that officer hadn't been there, I don't know what would have happened. Even now, years later, I can still hear his voice. "Funny running into you here." It wasn't funny at all. It was terrifying. I stared at my phone, my fingers trembling as I scrolled through the comments. "Damn, bro. She really did you dirty like that? Good riddance. You deserve better. She's just another gold digger, man. Keep your head up." My breath came in shallow gasps. My stomach twisted in knots. I hadn't even finished processing the breakup, and now the whole world knew. Or at least Tyler Finch's 2.3 million followers did. It wasn't just the announcement that shattered me. It was the way he framed it. After months of struggling in a toxic relationship, I finally decided to focus on my own happiness. It's time to move on. Toxic. That word burned into my brain. He made it sound like I was the villain, like I had forced his hand. And his fans ate it up. The DMs, the mentions, the flood of hate. They came so fast I couldn't keep up. I dropped my phone onto the kitchen counter and gripped the edge, trying to ground myself. My best friend, Celeste, leaned against the fridge, her expression unreadable. "I told you to log out for a while," she said softly. I let out a bitter laugh. "And let them think I'm hiding because I'm guilty? No way. Who cares what they think? They don't know you, but I did care. Too much." The worst part was Tyler hadn't even warned me. One minute we were barely speaking, letting the relationship fizzle out. The next he was publicly airing our breakup like it was content. And then, just hours after posting it, he vanished. It started with his Instagram stories, brief clips of his car driving through endless roads, a snapshot of a coffee cup from some gas station. Then a single post, "Clearing my head. Needed a break. Don't worry about me." The location tag, Willow Creek, a small town near the desert. Then nothing. No updates, no texts, no calls. At first I thought he was ghosting me, that he wanted to make a dramatic exit, let me stew in the aftermath. But after 2 days, his fans started to panic. "Yo, has anyone heard from Tyler? This ain't like him to disappear for this long. Maybe he just wants space. Let the man breathe." Then on the 3rd day, someone found his rental car abandoned outside a Starbucks in Willow Creek. Keys in the ignition, door slightly ajar. No sign of him. The moment I saw the news, I knew I had to go. Celeste tried to stop me. This isn't your problem anymore, Ivy. Let the cops handle it. I ignored her. I didn't care about the public fallout anymore. Something was wrong. I packed a small bag, fueled up my car, and drove 5 hours straight to Willow Creek. The town was smaller than I expected, barely a blip on the map. Starbucks was one of the only recognizable places, sitting on the corner of an old sun-baked strip mall. When I pulled into the lot, the sight of his rental car made my pulse quicken. It was still there, untouched. I stepped inside the Starbucks, the smell of coffee and warm pastries momentarily grounding me. The place was nearly empty except for a barista behind the counter and an older man reading a newspaper. I approached the register, forcing my voice to stay steady. Hey, I have a weird question. Did you happen to see a guy, tall, blonde, always filming stuff, come in here a few days ago? The barista frowned. You mean that influencer guy? Yeah, he was here. My heart leapt. Do you remember when? 3 days ago. He sat in the corner for a while, just staring out the window, seemed off, didn't even touch his drink. That wasn't like Tyler at all. Did he leave with anyone? She hesitated, then nodded. Yeah. There was this guy a little older, dark hair, scruffy. I thought maybe they knew each other, but the guy was doing most of the talking. Tyler barely said anything. A chill ran down my spine. Do you remember what he looked like? She thought for a moment. I think he had a scar on his cheek. And his hands were weird, like real rough and scratched up. I swallowed hard. That sounded a lot like Mason Carter, my ex. Mason and I had history, bad history, manipulation, obsession, threats. When I left him, he spiraled, sent me emails, showed up at my work, even tried to contact Tyler once. But that was years ago. I hadn't heard from him since. So why would his name be surfacing now? I stepped outside, the sun beating down on me as I tried to piece it together. The barista had said they left together, but where? Then I saw it. Near the edge of the parking lot, half hidden behind some overgrown bushes, was an old crumbling well. It looked ancient, like something forgotten by time. A glint of metal caught my eye. I walked toward it, my breath hitching as I recognized what lay in the dirt. Tyler's phone. And next to it, tangled in the weeds, was a broken chain. One I knew all too well. Mason's. Panic surged through me. My hands shook as I picked up the phone. Its screen was shattered. A smear of dried blood stained the casing. I dialed 911 with trembling fingers. The police arrived within an hour. A young deputy named Reed and an older detective, Alvarez. They listened to my story, taking notes, their expressions grim. You're saying this chain belonged to your ex? Alvarez asked. Yeah. My voice cracked. He used to wear it all the time. But I haven't seen him in years. Reed exchanged a glance with his partner. Mason Carter has a record. Assault, harassment. If he was seen with Tyler before his disappearance, we need to find him. That night I checked into a motel, too wired to sleep. Then around midnight I heard it. A soft shuffle outside my door. I held my breath. A slip of paper slid under the door. I waited until the footsteps faded before picking it up. Scrawled in jagged handwriting were 5 chilling words. Stop looking or you're next. I showed the note to the police in the morning. Alvarez wasn't surprised. If Mason's involved, he's watching you. They expanded their search, scouring the outskirts of town. Then 2 days later, they found something. Fresh tire tracks leading into the desert. They followed them to a makeshift campsite. Shovels, rope, and in the ashes of a fire, a scrap of burned fabric with Tyler's Instagram handle printed on it. But no Tyler. Then, a miracle. A hiker spotted him wandering disoriented through the desert, dehydrated, sunburned, a gash on his head, but alive. At the hospital, I saw him briefly. His voice shook, his hands trembling. He came out of nowhere, he rasped. Knocked me out. I woke up in some shelter, tied up. He kept saying weird things, that I ruined everything, that I took you from him, Mason. But I got away, Tyler continued. I ran. I ran until I couldn't anymore. The police issued a warrant for Mason. He was nowhere to be found. I left Willow Creek the next morning, still shaken, still haunted. Tyler never spoke about it publicly. His followers assumed he had gone on a spiritual retreat. He let them believe it. But we knew the truth. Somewhere out there, Mason was still watching, still waiting, and he wasn't done yet. I never thought a simple coffee run could change the way I saw the world. For years, Starbucks had been my sanctuary, a place to hide behind a laptop, headphones in, sipping a caramel macchiato while pretending life wasn't slowly swallowing me whole. But that changed last winter. It started with her. Part 1. The new hire. The Starbucks near my apartment had a familiar rhythm. Same baristas, same regulars, same playlist of jazzy Christmas covers even though it was February. But one afternoon I noticed someone new behind the counter. She was hard to miss. Tall, pale, with jet black hair pulled into a messy bun. Her green apron hung loosely on her frame and her sleeves were pulled down so far they covered her wrists. When she moved, it was with this strange stiffness, like every motion caused her pain. Her name tag read, Leah. When it was my turn to order, she didn't smile like the others, didn't ask how my day was, just stared at me with these flat, unblinking eyes. Grande caramel macchiato, I said awkwardly. She typed it in without a word. Her hands trembled as she reached for the cup. That's when I noticed her skin. Her knuckles were cracked, raw, like they had been burned and never healed. Red, shiny patches stretched up her fingers, disappearing under her sleeves. I told myself not to stare, but the image burned into my mind. When she handed me the drink, her fingertips brushed mine. Her skin was cold, damp, almost clammy, like touching something that had just crawled out of a basement. I forced a polite smile and took my drink to a corner seat. But I couldn't stop glancing back at her. Every time she turned, her sleeves rode up just a little, and I caught flashes of more burns, dark, jagged, almost like they had been carved instead of caused by fire. Part 2. The smell. Over the next week, I saw her every day, always working the late shift, always silent, moving mechanically like she was following choreography. But then came the smell. It started faint. A sour metallic tang that clung to the air whenever she walked by, like rust or blood. By the third night, it was impossible to ignore. Customers whispered about it. A couple left without finishing their drinks. I watched as she fumbled with cups, her hands trembling so badly she nearly dropped them. And then, as she slid a latte across the counter, I saw it, a bead of dark fluid dripping from her sleeve into the foam. My stomach lurched. The customer didn't notice. He picked up the cup and walked out. I couldn't. I marched to the counter. Hey, is your manager here? The shift lead, a guy named Jordan, looked up, annoyed. What's up? I lowered my voice. I think she's bleeding. Into the drinks, he sighed, rubbing his temples. We've talked to her about that. It's not blood, it's some kind of infection. She said she has a skin condition. Doctors cleared her. I stared at him, horrified. You're still letting her serve people? He shrugged. It's not contagious. But the way he said it, the way his eyes darted to her, he didn't believe it either. Part 3. Closing time. A few nights later, I stayed later than usual, lost in my work. By the time I looked up, the cafe was empty. Chairs stacked, lights dimmed. Only Leah remained, mopping near the door. I packed my bag, but as I turned to leave, I froze. She had stopped mopping. She was staring at me. Not just staring, grinning. It was the first expression I had ever seen on her face. Wide, toothless, almost childlike. Do you want to see? She whispered. Her voice was raspy, like unused vocal cords scraping together. I shook my head. See what? Slowly, she rolled up her sleeve. I expected burns, but what I saw made my stomach flip. Her skin wasn't just scarred, it was splitting. Deep, oozing cracks lined her forearm, glistening with that same dark fluid I'd seen drip into the coffee. And inside, dear God, inside, something was moving, wriggling. Tiny, pale shapes pushing against the torn flesh like larvae trapped under thin skin. I stumbled back, nearly knocking over a chair. She giggled, a sound so wrong, so giddy it made my skin crawl. "They live in me," she whispered. "They like the warmth." "The coffee helps. Keeps them calm," I bolted. Left my laptop, my bag, everything. Just ran. Part 4. Aftermath. I didn't sleep that night, or the next. When I finally worked up the courage to return, Leah was gone. No trace, no name tag, no schedule on the back wall. When I asked about her, Jordan just shook his head. "Who?" I stared at him. "The barista. The one with the burns. Leah." He frowned. "Dude, I don't know what you're talking about. We haven't hired anyone new this year." I laughed, thinking he was messing with me. But the look on his face, he wasn't. I checked the health inspection reports online. Nothing. No mention of contamination, no failed inspections. It was like she'd never worked there at all. And yet, every time I order a coffee now, I can't shake the feeling that something unseen is swirling beneath the foam. Something alive. I was a night driver back then. Deliveries, odd jobs, anything to keep the bills from eating me alive. Sleep was optional, caffeine wasn't. That's how I first found the 24-hour Starbucks on Ashland Road. It wasn't listed on Google Maps. No reviews, no photos, nothing. Just a glowing sign in the distance one night at 2:47 a.m., when I was desperate for coffee and every other shop was closed. The lot was empty. Not a single car. But the inside lights were on, warm and inviting. I told myself, lucky break. I pulled in. The first thing I noticed when I walked inside was the smell. Not coffee, not pastries. Something metallic, wet. 3 baristas stood behind the counter, all wearing spotless green aprons. They smiled in unison when I entered. "Welcome to Starbucks," they said together. Something about it felt rehearsed, like they had been waiting. Grande Pike Place," I muttered, sliding a crumpled bill across. One barista, tall, with hair slicked back too tightly, took the money. But when his hand brushed mine, I nearly flinched. His skin was ice cold. The second barista, a woman with hair covering half her face, began pouring the coffee. Her motions were stiff, mechanical, her wrist bending at unnatural angles. The third barista just watched me, smiling, never blinking. When the coffee came, it was steaming hot. I wrapped my hands around it, desperate for warmth. But the smell hit me again, not coffee, something sour, coppery. I took a cautious sip. The liquid was bitter, thick, too thick. I gagged and set the cup down. The baristas stared, all 3 at once. "You don't like it?" they asked. Together, perfectly in sync. I muttered some excuse and backed out the door, heart pounding. When I looked up, the Starbucks sign was a week later. I convinced myself it was exhaustion. Hallucinations? Maybe I had stumbled into some off-brand coffee place that just looked like Starbucks. But then, driving past Ashland Road again around 3 a.m., I saw it. The sign. Bright. Inviting. I pulled in, even though every nerve in my body screamed not to. The same 3 baristas were there. Same smiles. Same eerie greeting. But this time, I noticed something else. The other customers. Or what looked like customers. 5 people sat scattered around the cafe, each with a drink in front of them. But none of them moved, none of them drank. They just sat perfectly still, eyes fixed on the tables. Their skin looked pale. Waxen. I tried to leave, but the tall barista blocked the door. His smile never wavered. "You haven't finished your drink," he said. I glanced at the cup they had placed in front of me. Dark liquid swirling like it was alive. My throat closed. I didn't order this." The woman with the bent wrist leaned closer. Her hair shifted just enough for me to see her face. Her eye sockets were empty, still wet, still bleeding. Part 3. The escape panic surged through me. I shoved past the tall barista and sprinted into the night. But when I looked back, the building was gone. Nothing but an empty parking lot, weeds pushing through cracks in the asphalt. I didn't stop driving until dawn. For months I avoided Ashland Road. I convinced myself it was sleep deprivation. A nightmare. Until last week. Scrolling through Reddit at 3 a.m., I found a thread. Has anyone been to the Starbucks that doesn't exist? The replies chilled me. Ashland Road, right? Thought I was the only one. Don't drink the coffee. It's not coffee. Check the customers. They're not alive. One comment stuck with me. If you ever walk in, don't let them see you leave. If they notice you leave, they'll follow. I shut my laptop, trembling. But as I turned toward my window, I froze. Across the street, under the flickering streetlight, 3 figures stood, green aprons, smiling, and one of them still holding my unfinished cup. January 14th. I've started spending my nights here. The Starbucks on Belmont and 12th. It's open late, and the staff don't mind if I sit with my laptop until close. It feels safe, neutral, a place where nothing bad could happen. January 19th. I noticed something odd tonight. The windows fogged from the inside, even though the cafe was almost empty. The barista, tall, pale, with glasses, kept wiping the glass, but the fog returned instantly, like someone was breathing against it from the other side. When I asked about it, he laughed nervously and said, "Oh, that always happens." But it doesn't. I come here all the time. It never has. January 27th. There's a woman who sits in the corner every night now. Long coat, gloves, doesn't order anything. Just sits with her head bowed like she's asleep. But when I passed her table, I realized her cup was filled with something thick and black. Not coffee. Too viscous. It clung to the sides like tar. February 2nd, I asked the barista who she was. He froze, then whispered, "Don't look at her too long." When I laughed it off, he dropped his smile. His eyes were bloodshot. I mean it. Don't. February 8th. The woman in the corner moved tonight. First time I've ever seen her shift. She lifted her head slowly and I realized she has no mouth, just smooth skin where her lips should be. Yet somehow I heard her whisper, "You're staying too late." I left without finishing my drink. February 15th, I told myself I'd stop going, but I can't sleep at home. I wake up drenched in sweat, convinced someone is standing at the foot of my bed. Starbucks feels safer, even with her there. Tonight the cafe was empty except for me and the corner woman. The baristas had all gone into the back. I tried to read, but I kept glancing at her. She was closer. 2 tables closer than usual. February 21st. The barista begged me not to come anymore. His hands were shaking when he handed me my drink. "They notice the ones who stay too long," he whispered. "And once they notice you, you can't leave." When I pressed him, he just stared at me. His eyes weren't bloodshot anymore, they were hollow. February 28th. There were no employees tonight, no music, no customers, just me. And her. She sat directly across from me, her gloved hands folded neatly on the table. I tried not to look, but when I glanced up, her gloves had slipped down. Her fingers were burned, split open, hollow. Something writhed inside them. And still I heard the whisper, "Drink." My cup was filled to the brim, though I hadn't ordered. The liquid inside was black, tar-thick. It smelled of iron and rot. I don't remember leaving. I only remember waking up at home, my lips stained black, my stomach churning. March 3rd, I checked my reflection this morning. My mouth is different, wider than before, my teeth look sharper. I haven't been back to Starbucks, but I can taste it now, even without the cup. That thick, bitter tar sliding down my throat. It's inside me. I think I'm becoming like her. March 7th, I hear them whisper outside my apartment door. Not just her. Many voices all blending together like steam hissing from a kettle. Time to serve, time to pour, time to drink. I don't want to go back, but I know I will. They've marked me. Starbucks isn't a coffee shop, it's a church. And I've already taken communion. The snow started falling before sundown. By the time Kara pulled her scarf tighter and trudged across Eastman Avenue toward the Starbucks, the flakes were coming down thick, each one catching in the orange glow of the street lamps. The storm had a way of swallowing sound, muting the city into something eerily still. It was 10:30 p.m. and she was already exhausted. Closing shifts always dragged, but the blizzard outside promised one thing: few customers, maybe none at all. She just had to make it to midnight with Dylan and Emily, then lock the doors and go home to her tiny apartment. The bell above the door jingled as she pushed it open. Warmth and the faint smell of roasted beans wrapped around her. Emily was behind the counter restocking cups, humming under her breath while Dylan fiddled with the pastry case. "You made it," Dylan said, grinning. "Roads bad?" "Like driving through white paint," Kara muttered, tugging off her gloves. "Let's just get through tonight." They worked in silence for the next half hour. Kara wiped counters, checked syrups, filled the milk pitchers. The music overhead was soft, jazzy covers of Christmas songs, the kind that could lull you to sleep. Outside, the snow thickened, frosting the windows until the world beyond looked more like a fogged mirror than a street. At 10:58, the door opened. Kara froze. A man stepped inside, snowflakes clinging to his coat. He was tall, painfully thin, with a narrow face that looked carved from wax. His clothes were wrong. An old wool coat with brass buttons, tarnished green, cracked leather boots that looked decades out of fashion. He smelled faintly of iron and damp earth. "Sorry, we're closing soon," Kara began, forcing a polite tone. The man gave no sign he'd heard. He walked past her, slow, deliberate steps, and took the corner seat by the far window. He folded his hands on the table and bowed his head slightly. Emily shot Kara a look. "What the hell?" Kara cleared her throat. "Sir? Can I get you something?" The man lifted his head. His eyes were cloudy white like river stones, blind maybe. And yet Kara felt his gaze pin her where she stood. "I am already being served," he said softly. Her skin prickled. 11:03. They tried to ignore him. Dylan cracked a few jokes. Emily turned the music louder, but none of it erased the weight in the room. Kara glanced at the wall clock. The hands were stuck at 11:03. "Huh," she muttered. "Battery must have died." But when she checked her phone, her stomach clenched. 11:03. Frozen. Minutes passed, or maybe hours. The snow outside didn't change, the flakes falling at the same slow pace like a looped video. Then the door jingled again. Two women entered. They were drenched, clothes clinging wetly to their frames, hair hanging in dripping ropes. But no snow melted on the floor. They looked around blankly, then moved to sit across from the man in the corner. Kara whispered, Did either of you lock the door?" Neither Dylan nor Emily had. More arrived, a man in a business suit, tie ripped, his throat mottled with deep purple bruises. A little girl in flannel pajamas, bare feet leaving no prints. An old woman with a scarf tied too tightly around her neck. One by one they filled the cafe, sitting neatly in rows, their eyes glassy and unfocused. Not one of them ordered. Not one of them spoke. They only stared at the staff. Kara's chest tightened. She couldn't make herself move. It felt as though invisible threads pinned her in place. Dylan's hand shook so badly the cups clattered. Emily whispered a prayer under her breath. The espresso machine hissed on its own. Steam curled upward. Cups slid from the stack one by one without a hand touching them. Black liquid poured steadily into each, thicker than coffee, slick and tar-like. The smell was sharp, metallic, like blood on hot metal. The man in the corner stood. His voice rolled out deep and resonant, though his lips barely moved. "Serve." Kara's body obeyed before her mind could resist. She picked up the first cup, trembling, and carried it to the old woman with the scarf. The woman's jaw unhinged with a sickening pop. Her mouth stretched impossibly wide, black teeth gleaming. She drank greedily, the sound like liquid gurgling through an open wound. Tar dribbled down her chin, staining the floor. Dylan and Emily moved too, their faces slack with terror, yet their limbs carrying tray after tray. The customers drank, and with every cup the staff felt weaker, as if their life was being siphoned with the coffee. Finally, when every shadowed figure had drunk their fill, silence fell. The man in the corner raised his hand, and the others froze in place, their mouths dripping black sludge. He approached the counter. Up close, Kara saw his face clearly for the first time. skin gray and papery, stretched too tightly over his bones. His eyes, though clouded, glowed faintly. "You serve the living," he said. "Tonight you serve us." From his coat he withdrew a Starbucks cup. Unlike the others, it was spotless. White, logo gleaming. Steam rose in lazy curls from within. He held it out. Kara shook her head violently, tears streaking her face. "Please, no." But Dylan reached first. His hand shook, but he lifted the cup to his lips. The instant he drank, his body convulsed. Black veins spiderwebbed across his skin. His eyes rolled back. He collapsed, twitching, mouth spilling tar onto the floor. Emily screamed. She bolted for the door. She yanked it open, and was met not with snow, but with ash. A black storm howled outside, swirling like smoke, carrying whispers that hissed and clawed. Emily staggered back, choking. The door slammed shut on its own. The man turned back to Kara. His pale eyes burned. "You're the last." The morning. At 6 a.m., the storm outside was gone. The city lay quiet under a clean blanket of snow. When the morning shift arrived at Starbucks, everything was in order. Counters spotless, floors gleaming, pastry case stocked. But there was no sign of the closing crew. Kara, Dylan, Emily, gone. Their coats and bags remained in the back room. Their names were still on the schedule. Customers trickled in, sipping lattes, tapping on laptops. Nothing seemed amiss. And yet those who lingered too long in the corner seats swore they felt something cold brush their ankles. And sometimes, when the baristas steamed milk, the foam whispered. It started as a normal night. I was working the closing shift at the Starbucks on Main Street, the one tucked between a 24-hour convenience store and a laundromat. It was late November, the city streets nearly empty, the air sharp and biting with winter cold. I liked these shifts, quiet, peaceful. I could clean, restock, and leave with the satisfaction of a job done. That night, Emily and Marcus were on shift with me. Emily was nervous, a new hire, always second-guessing her steps. Marcus had been at this location for years, calm, collected, the type of barista who could handle any difficult customer with a shrug and a smile. The last regular customers left around 10:45 p.m. The door jingled once more and then silence. Just the hum of the espresso machines, the hiss of the milk steamers, and the soft pop of the overhead lights. I began cleaning tables when I noticed the man. He was tall, wearing a long black coat, his hair dark and slicked back. Nothing unusual about him except the way he walked directly to a corner table, not glancing at the menu, not acknowledging us. Just sat, folded his hands neatly in front of him. "Can I get you anything?" I asked, approaching him cautiously. He didn't look up. "Coffee," he said, his voice calm, but it carried an undertone that made my stomach twist. I nodded and went to prepare his drink. A latte, tall, nothing fancy. I handed it to him. He accepted it with a slow, deliberate motion, sipping as if savoring the heat rather than the flavor. It wasn't until a few minutes later that I realized he hadn't blinked. Not once. By 11:30, the storm outside had started. Snow fell thick, coating the sidewalks in white, the wind whistling down the street. The regulars had all left. Only the three of us remained, cleaning, restocking, preparing for the morning. Then I noticed it. The man in the corner hadn't moved. His coffee was gone, yet he remained perfectly still, head bowed slightly. When I glanced again, his eyes were open. Pitch black. No whites, no iris, just an endless void. Emily noticed it too. She whispered, I don't like him." Marcus laughed nervously. "It's fine. He's just intense." I nodded, but unease prickled at my neck. At 11:50, the lights flickered. The hum of the machines warped into a low, vibrating tone. I froze, hands hovering over the counter. Then the man spoke softly, almost a whisper, but it filled the room. "Serve them." I turned. Behind him, the shadows had shifted. Figures appeared, standing silently in the corners of the cafe. At first, I thought it was the storm outside causing reflections, but no. These were real. Men, women, children. Their faces pale, their eyes hollow. Emily gasped. Marcus's hand trembled. I realized we hadn't closed the blinds. The snow outside seemed to stop falling. Outside the windows, only blackness. No street lamps, no cars, no city. The man in the corner stood and walked toward the counter. I wanted to move, to step back, but my legs refused. Something heavy pressed down on my chest. "You serve the living," he said, "or you join them." A cold wind swept through the cafe, extinguishing the candles in the pastry display. The figures in the corners moved closer, silent but purposeful. Each step they took was precise, synchronized. Marcus tried to speak. What do you want?" The man extended a hand and a cup appeared in his palm. Steam rose from it. The aroma was sweet, but beneath it a metallic, rotten scent. My stomach lurched. "Drink," he said. I shook my head violently. Emily was backing away, tears in her eyes. Marcus's eyes were wide, frozen. I didn't notice when he stepped closer, pressing the cup toward me. My fingers moved on their own. I reached. I lifted it. The moment the liquid touched my lips, fire burned through my veins. Black smoke seemed to curl in my chest. I coughed, gagged, and fell to the floor. The world tilted, dark shapes swirling above me. The figures in the corners were no longer human. They were shadows with eyes, mouths that stretched impossibly wide, teeth jagged and dripping. I don't know how long I was unconscious. Hours, days. When I awoke, I was lying behind the counter. The cafe was empty. The storm outside was gone, replaced by a dull gray morning. Marcus and Emily were nowhere to be seen. Their jackets, bags, and aprons remained in the back room. Their schedules still posted on the board. But they were gone. The man, gone. The cup, still on the counter. Cold. Empty. I thought I was safe. I thought I could leave. But as I stepped outside, snow crunched under my boots. And then I saw them. Figures pale and hollow-eyed, standing just beyond the curb. Watching. Waiting. I ran, heart hammering through the streets. I didn't stop, not for a single glance back. I quit Starbucks the next day. I moved apartments, changed my schedule, tried to forget. But at night, I hear it. The hiss of a coffee machine. The soft scrape of chairs on tile. A bell jingling far off, just enough to pull me out of sleep. I can taste it sometimes. The thick, bitter coffee that burned through my veins. I know it's waiting. Somewhere. For me. And one day I will return. The last cup never goes cold. It was the last week before summer break, and I had picked up an extra closing shift at the KFC on Maple Avenue. Everyone else had begged off. Something about the shift had given the staff the creeps lately. But I needed the extra cash. I should have listened to them. The restaurant was nearly empty that night. The fluorescent lights flickered intermittently, casting long, jerky shadows across the greasy tile floor. The fryers hissed, bubbling like some kind of living thing. Normally, the smell of fried chicken comforted me. Tonight, it made my stomach turn. I was stacking clean trays when I noticed it. A red bucket sitting on a corner table near the back. At first, I thought it had been left behind by a customer. But then I realized it was the wrong bucket. Faded, older than the current stock, and something about it felt alive. The grin on Colonel Sanders' face seemed stretched, too wide, too eager. I felt my chest tighten. I tried to ignore it. But the bucket wasn't alone. The back door, the one leading to the storage area and basement, was cracked open even though I was sure I had closed it. A cold draft whispered up from the dark basement steps. I froze, heart hammering. "Hello?" I called softly, my voice bouncing off the metal shelving. No answer. Then I heard it, a faint scraping sound, like something dragging itself along the floor below. I should have left. I should have run. But curiosity and some sick, stubborn part of me drew me toward the basement. I grabbed a flashlight from the counter and descended the steps. The smell hit me first. Raw meat, metallic, rotting. My stomach turned, bile rising. The bucket had followed me. Somehow it was at the bottom of the stairs now, glowing slightly under the flashlight beam. I reached for it and froze. Inside the bucket, chicken pieces were moving, twisting, crawling. They weren't chicken anymore. Limbs formed, twisted, pale and slimy. Faces emerged, tiny and malformed, screaming silently as they pressed against the sides of the bucket. I stumbled back, my flashlight clattering to the floor. When it hit the concrete, the beam wavered and landed on him. The man, the same shadowy figure from the previous encounters. His coat hung loosely, his hood down, revealing a face pale and angular, eyes black as oil, grinning like the colonel himself. "You've seen too much," he whispered, voice like a blade. I ran, tried to ascend the stairs, but they seemed longer than they should have been. The basement stretched, impossibly deep, like the building itself had grown while I wasn't looking. The bucket followed, hopping across the floor as if alive. The chicken creatures inside writhed, scraping against the concrete, reaching for me with tiny clawed hands. Their cries were a wet, gurgling chorus that made my ears bleed. I reached the first landing and froze again. The walls were lined with more buckets, old buckets, faded red with grins stretched wider than humanly possible. They moved on their own, whispering my name, beckoning me closer. "Join us," they hissed. I slammed the emergency exit door, but it didn't budge. The man was there at the top of the stairs now, slowly descending. The basement seemed endless, yet he covered it in a single step. "Why? What is this?" I stammered. "It's business," he said almost cheerfully. "Everyone loves the taste of KFC. They just don't know how deep the flavor goes." The bucket leapt from the landing at my feet. The chicken creature inside formed a humanoid shape, shaking off its greasy shell. It lunged at me. I screamed, grabbed a nearby mop and swung it, hitting nothing but air. I bolted down a side corridor I hadn't noticed before. The basement twisted, corridors multiplying. Buckets appeared at every turn, some levitating, some crawling, all with faces, all watching. I could hear him laughing behind me, low and hollow, echoing through the endless concrete. Then I saw it, a trapdoor leading to a smaller, darker room. I slammed it open and dove inside. The smell was worse here, almost unbearable. The walls were smeared with grease, old blood, and something else, something moving. In the center of the room, a massive red bucket sat on a pedestal. It was huge, big enough to hold a person. The grin on Colonel Sanders' face stretched impossibly wide, and the lid moved on its own, rattling. I didn't hesitate. I jumped on it, slamming it shut. The bucket quivered and shuddered beneath me. Screams and sloshing noises filled the air. Then, silence. I stayed there, heart pounding, listening. Nothing. Finally, I climbed out, dragging the bucket with me. The basement stairs had returned to normal length. The storage area was just a storage area again. The red bucket sat silently, harmless, or at least it appeared so. I ran out of the KFC that night, never looking back. The next morning, the manager called. The store had been trashed overnight. Fryers overturned, counters slashed, buckets everywhere, but when investigators came, they found no footprints, no cameras captured anything unusual. I quit. Permanently. Months later, I received a package at my apartment. Inside was a red KFC bucket, older than any I had ever seen, and a note. "We'll see you again. Soon." I never opened it, I never will. And sometimes, late at night, when I can't sleep, I swear I hear the soft, wet scratching of tiny fingers against metal, whispering my name. The KFC on Maple Avenue is still open, still serving fried chicken. But I know the truth. Some recipes are better left uneaten. Some doors are better left unopened. And some nights, the bucket chooses you.